Jon Gruden previews the NFC South, and in the NFC South, he's previewing the New Orleans Saints. We're going to focus on the Saints portion of this. The entire video is 2 hours and 15 minutes. Unbelievable stuff there. In each section, Rich Gannon joins John to talk about whatever section they're on. So former NFL MVP Rich Gannon. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. A million different people have sent me this. So let's go ahead and rock and roll, shall we?
The New Orleans Saints, they've gone through a lot of changes, kind of like my hairstyles. You know, I just got the training camp haircut. But they went 5-12, a very disappointing 2024 season, and they brought in a new head coach, Kellen Moore, the former offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, the LA Chargers, the Dallas Cowboys. Kellen Moore gets the keys to the New Orleans Saints. He also has a new defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, who he worked with when Moore was the offensive coordinator and Brandon Staley was the head coach of the LA Chargers. Staley brings in a 3-4 defense, and this will be the first time the Saints are in this 3-4 alignment since the Dome Patrol 30 years ago.
So, yeah, I mean, like when you're talking about change, you know, I'm not that old. I mean, I'm nowhere near my prime, but in my lifetime, I don't think I can ever remember a team going through, and not just the Saints, just in general, going through this much change in one offseason. You are talking about new head coach, new OC, new DC, completely new staff, new quarterback, new left tackle, new right tackle, new left guard, on top of, you know, all kind of other stuff. But, and brand spanking new defensive system shifting from a 4-3 to a 3-4. It is as new as you can possibly get. I've said this before. The only way it could be more new is if it was an expansion team. I mean, seriously, between the coaching staff, the philosophy, the scheme, the roster, it's insane.
That was Swilling and Ricky Jackson, Sam Mills, I think Vaughn Johnson. I mean, that was a hell of a team. They also are going to have a new quarterback. Derek Carr retired, and they've got a bunch of young arms in camp that are trying to get that job. They will have a new opening day starter at left tackle, and I think they're going to have two brand new corners with Adebo gone and Marshawn Lattimore also gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Like, it's also, you have two brand new safeties with Justin Reed and if it's Julian Blackmon or whoever ends up winning that job. But you can go down the list, and it really is like you're two new safeties, new cornerbacks at 1 and 2. Last year, you could also say like they have a new 1, 2, and 3 wide receiver because last year Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed were hurt and Brandon Cooks wasn't on the team. From last year to this year, especially if you factor in the injuries, and I wasn't even really talking about that originally, I was talking about brand new players, but if you factor in the injuries as well, I mean, at that point, it's nuts. But take injuries away. Yeah, new safeties, you've got a new 1 and 2 cornerback, you've got everything we said on the offensive side of the ball, everything we said on the coaching staff.
Wow. A lot of change in New Orleans. They've been in salary cap purgatory. I have heard they're as much as $54 million over the cap. That's tough.
They're cool. They're good now. Like, that's not an issue. That's not a problem. That's nothing to do with this season. That can be put to bed. We have put it to bed. Not a big deal. So the salary cap thing, all good. I mean, we can't go, trade for and sign Micah Parsons, but we're not in salary cap hell.
Really tough. They have had some notable additions. 2 guys in particular. Brandon Cooks, the 32-year-old former Saint, former Dallas Cowboy, is back. And I think he's going to play a big role in this young receiver corps. They also brought in world champion safety Justin Reed, a former Kansas City Chief, to add some communication and playmaking into this section.
So this is from a while ago. He mentioned early on in the video, he mentioned this was like before training camp and all that. So this is obviously before Tyrann retired, is before some of that. I don't think that's really going to matter. And I mean, you can see it right here. It says aging core on defense, Tyrann Mathieu, but I don't think it's going to matter. But just in case he says anything and you're like, wait a second.
Secondary. They started 2-0 last year. They scored 91 points in their first 2 games. Yeah. I was like, who dat, man? I was going crazy. But then injuries hit, and it was more like catastrophic injuries. They won only 3 games Out of their last 15, they finished.
So we've talked about the injuries before, and a lot of people are like, well, I can't believe you're blaming it on injuries. I don't think people really understand just the severity of the injuries. Okay, so this chart you're looking at is the adjusted games lost due to injury on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. The Saints, offensively, look at where they are. They are, so here's the same chart, but in a data set. They had 87.3 games lost. Is Monster Jam outside of the studio right now? Listen, I'm filming this at like 9:30 at night just to get the get the content going. Is Gravedigger doing backflips down Canal Street? What is Evel Knievel about to shoot through the window over a flaming barrel or something? Damn. But the Saints had 87.3 games lost offensively. No one else is even in the 70s. Who's the second highest? San Francisco? San Francisco's the second highest with 65. The Saints had 22 more games lost. That is insane. Absolutely insane. Now, they also have a total number, which is this over here, which is how it's sorted. And because San Francisco lost 76 on defense, whereas the Saints only lost 27 on defense, that's why the Saints are only fourth. But when you look at the offensive games lost for the Saints, that is astronomical. I mean, that is as crazy as I've ever seen a model like this. It really is nuts. So when, like, I know it's easy to be like, yeah, the Saints were injury plagued last year, whatever. When you see it like this, you realize how much of how just biblical that whole thing was.
3-12, and they were 31st in the league in scoring from week 3 to week 18. The only teams they beat were the 3-win Browns, the 3-win Giants, and the 8-win Atlanta Falcons. It was a struggle. And it wasn't just the injuries. It was catastrophic injuries. Starting quarterback Derek Carr missed 7 games. The Saints went 0-7 when he wasn't in there. They lost both of their receivers. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, missed more than half the season. They lost linemen. Ramczyk, their very good right tackle, never played.
He was always going to miss. That wasn't that big of a deal. But McCoy going down, I mean, we don't have to rehash the whole thing. But, yeah, it was absolutely insane, the amount of injuries.
Lost Eric McCoy. They lost their left guard.
Alvin
they had 9
Kamara,
different
Taysom
starters
Hill
on their offensive line. I mean, that'll make you sick as a coach. And then they lose Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau, their 2 tight ends, to terrible knee injuries during the season. Alvin Kamara misses the last 3 games. So there's a lot of catastrophic injuries that did take place.
Yeah.
And their defense has an aging core of players. DeMario Davis.
This part, I've heard this a little bit this week. I don't think this is really true anymore. Like, when you think about the aging core of players, now that Tyrann Mathieu retired, it really is just DeMario Davis. Because Cam Jordan isn't a starter. Like, Cam Jordan's kind of a rotational player. Even if you throw Cam Jordan, Cam Jordan's not the focal point of the defense. Like, DeMario Davis is a huge part of our defense, sure. But those 2 players, I don't think you can say they have an aging core when they pretty much have 2 players that are old. If anything, they actually have like a really young defense. I mean, you look at Chase Young, Brian Brzee, Kool-Aid, Quincy Riley. You look at Justin Reed, Pete Werner, Danny Stutzman, all the rookies, obviously, Jonas Sanker, Jordan Howden. It's it kind of shows you how funny narratives are and how quick that kind of stuff can flip, where, yeah, we did have an aging core, but very quickly it's flipped to the point to where not only do we not have an aging core, we're actually borderline, like, you could borderline say they're almost too young. They're almost too inexperienced and too young. I mean, if there is such a thing. But it's just kind of funny how, and I'm not saying Gruden's like, just pushing narratives or whatever, but it's funny how you hear a narrative for long enough, and then all of a sudden you look around and you're like, well, wait a minute, this isn't even close to being true.
This is 36. Cam Jordan is 36, and Tyrann Mathieu is 33 years old. They're still great leaders and can still play, but they are getting up there. That's why I think there's a youth movement in New Orleans. They drafted Kelvin Banks in the first round. I believe he'll be their starting opening day left tackle. But
he better be.
Then they went out and got Tyler Shough to be their future quarterback. And after that, they brought in some defensive players to supplement.
Well, look at this list, too. I talked about this in a video. I don't know when it went out. Who even knows what all the content we're pumping out. But when you look at this list and you think about what you've heard from training camp, you have heard Kelvin Banks, you have heard Tyler Shough, you have heard Jonas Sanker, you have heard Danny Stutzman, you have heard Quincy Riley, you have even heard Fadil Diggs. Like, the amount of impact these young players are making already is pretty sporty, pretty substantial. Now, you stack another one of these draft classes next year, all of a sudden, the Saints are a really young, exciting team.
Their aging core, Vernon Broughton, defensive end from Texas. Jonas Sanker, where'd he go to college? Ballasack.
Virginia.
And you love him. He's going to fit in nice with this young secondary. Danny Stutzman, former FFCA graduate, linebacker from Oklahoma. Quincy Riley, a cornerback from Louisville. They went out and added some good players to give them.
But this is how you do it. Like, this is how you, and people act like Saints have never done this before, but this is the 2016, 2017 blueprint of, all right, you kind of fell out of a winning window. You're struggling. We need cheap, young, talented players. Well, the best place to do that is the draft. And then you bring in back-to-back big-time draft classes. Now, those were like historically good, but this is the same thing. You bring in a ton of draft picks. You make sure they all are ready to play now. They are all from big schools, big experience, high character guys. And I have no doubt we'll do the same thing next year.
A youth movement that I think they need in New Orleans. They do have a very good kicker, Blake Group. He's 27 out of 31 last year. And
yeah, Groupie, kind of underrated, for as underrated as a kicker can be, I guess. But yeah, Groupie's fine.
He's 6 for 8 in long-range field goals. That's pretty darn good. This is a team that needed an injection of young players.
Yeah.
They got that in the draft. Yeah. The one thing I love about the Saints, though, it's not always dark. It's not always as dim as it seems. They've had a history of finding players from underground. Where'd they get these guys? I mean, think about it. Pierre Thomas, Chris Ivory, Marcus Colston, Lance Moore, Jimmy Graham, Rashid Shaheed, Willie Snead, even the great Sam Mills. 7th round picks, not even drafted players. Mickey Loomis and his staff, they're going to come up with some sleepers. That's why you better pay attention to the Saints in the preseason.
Well, they already have. I mean, you can already tell they have. And that's why we had the prediction that once the team is on the field, people are going to be like, well, hold on a second, this team's not that bad. Because until people see Danny Stutzman or Jonas Sanker or Quincy Riley or whoever, until they see them, they don't know who they are. They're just a name. They're going to assume they suck. And that's just human nature. But once they start seeing these players, it's like, well, hold on a second. I mean, just the clips out of training camp, when you see the angles and the athleticism and the speed of Danny Stutzman, it's like, okay, he's good. When you see what Quincy Riley's doing, okay, he's good. I just had a commenter. Who was like, yeah, well, Quincy Riley's going to start getting burned, and then you're going to wish you traded for Asante Samuel. And it's like, well, what if Quincy Riley's good? I mean, if nothing else, it's a 50-50 shot that he's either serviceable or not. So what if he's good? What if Danny Stutzman's good? What if these guys are good? Then what? Then all of a sudden, people saying, well, the Saints don't have this, the Saints don't have that, the Saints don't have this. All of a sudden that gets changed to, well, the Saints are pretty good at linebacker. They're pretty good in the secondary. They're really good at receiver. They're really good on the offensive line. They're really good at running back. Like, all of a sudden now it's like, well wow, that flipped pretty quick.
Okay, let's zoom in on the New Orleans Saints offense.
All right.
Head coach Kellen Moore is going to call the plays, I do believe. And if you study Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator over the last 6 years, when he was in Dallas, everybody said, man, he throws the ball a lot.
Yeah, that was a different, yes. And back then there was this kind of philosophical shift where why would we run the ball for 3 yards if we can throw the ball for 3 yards? And it was this real innovative kind of mindset of you could possibly get more yak in a passing play. There's more explosiveness in a passing play. Passing plays inherently have, now we're going to get into a little bit of math here, but passing plays inherently have more expected value, we'll say, because they have a higher ceiling, because a passing play generally goes for more yards and is more explosive than a running play. So if you're looking at it just math-wise, you would want to skew to more passing plays, okay? And that's when we saw people start throwing on early downs, which still exists, not to the extent it did then, but it still exists to where now the thought then was, well, let's throw on first down instead of running on 1st and 10. Like teams, basically just 90% of the time, they just ran on 1st and 10. It was just, okay, 1st and 10, run the football. Then it shifted to, let's try and throw. And if we get 3-4 yards, same thing as running, but we might get more, and I think Kellen was young and on the front end of it, which is good. You always want to be on the front end of a trend like that. And I think because of that, he was viewed as like, hey man, it's okay to run the ball. I think he did kind of fall into that, like maybe he was running the ball too much or throwing the ball too much.
Throw the ball a lot. Then he went to the Chargers with Justin Herbert. Man, they throw the ball a lot. Then he went to Philadelphia as the offensive coordinator. Everybody said he runs the ball all the time.
Yeah.
So he has proven that he can adapt to a pass offense or a rushing attack featured offense. He can do it all. This guy's a versatile coach. He surrounded himself with Coach Nussmeier, Scott Tolzien, quarterback developers, and they're going to need all three of these men to develop these young arms. But remember, Kellen Moore had a lot to do with Dak Prescott's best years. He had a lot to do with Justin Herbert's best years. And
yeah, Herbert was good until he got hurt in Kellen's year. Kellen had him for like 13 games or something. Then Easton Stick played. And I mean, what are you going to do? But before that, Herbert was like 3,100 yards, 20 touchdowns, 7 picks. Like he was playing pretty well. Dak was a legitimate MVP candidate. Jalen Hurts was a legitimate MVP candidate and won the Super Bowl with Kellen. So Kellen has, I just watched a video that, and the guy was like, I mean, Kellen Moore failed in Los Angeles. It's like, brother, how do you just skip over? He just won a Super Bowl. How do you skip over what was going on in Dallas?
He did just win a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. So you have a guy that has a history of not only playing the position, but he's also.
And this does confuse me, not what Gruden's saying, but this does confuse me when people are absolutely Krispy Kreme glazing Ben Johnson, but not Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore is a better resume version of Ben Johnson. That's really all he is. He's an offensive guy. He's an innovative guy. He's a young coach. He's been an OC. But the only difference is he's been more successful than Ben Johnson. So I think Ben Johnson gets a lot of that hype, a lot of that praise. And I'm not totally sure why. And Kellen is almost like an afterthought. But I would implore you to dig deeper into why exactly. And I think you'll find out pretty quickly, like, well, there isn't really a reason. And usually when you arrive at that point, that's when you realize that the groupthink is maybe in the wrong direction.
So a very good coach of the position. And he was on Gruden's QB class years ago when he was coming out of Boise State. Don't forget that. When I look at Kellen Moore's offense, he really leads the league in these RPOs.
Pop trivia. I like doing these little trivias now. Y'all seem to enjoy them in the comment section. Boise State's infamous win in the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma on the Statue of Liberty play. Who was the quarterback of that Boise State team? In the comments below. Don't look it up. Don't look it up. I'll give you the answer in 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jared Zabransky.
Run pass options. Their running game oftentimes has a built-in pass to it. And these quarterbacks are going to be asked to catch the ball in a shotgun, read a defensive player while they're working the mesh of the exchange with the back. If it's a good look, they hand it. If it's a bad look, they'll pull it and they'll throw a quick pass someplace. 275 RPOs in Philadelphia last year, far and away number one in the league. And when he was with the Chargers 2 years ago, they were second in the league in the RPO usage. So keep an eye on that if you're a Saints fan.
Question is, do you have the player to run that? Now, you could say, well, that's why he got Tyler Shough, right? He got Tyler Shough because he wants to run the RPO with him. Well, if Shough's not the starter, can you do that with Spencer Rattler? Okay? With Justin Herbert, with Jalen Hurts, you can.
He has had a lot of success with running backs. In Dallas, Tony Pollard had over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. Another season, he averaged 5.5 yards per carry. When he was with the Chargers, Austin Eckler had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Used to drive me crazy, that freaking Austin Eckler, man. He was tough. And now he gets the keys to Alvin Kamara. And don't forget, Saquon Barkley had over 2,000 yards. With
AK is not Saquon, but I'm on record saying I think Alvin's going to have his best year, one of his best years of his career this year. I mean, it just lines up. Arguably the best offensive line he's had in quite a while, with one of the best offensive minds he's had in quite a while. It just is all there for him to really light it up. I think he gets over that 1,000-yard number. I haven't looked recently, but last I saw, DraftKings still had him at 750 yards for the season. I think that's an easy over, barring an injury. He had 900 and whatever last year. So in a much worse situation. So I think AK is going to have a big year this year.
Kellen Moore calling the plays. I'm anxious to see how Alvin Kamara looks in Kellen Moore's offense. We got to keep an eye on the quarterback position.
I also think it's another groupthink thing. But when you hear people say, well, Alvin Kamara is too old, and then the same people say, I think Christian McCaffrey could be MVP this year. It's like, well, wait a minute. Wait a sec. One's coming off of a debilitating injury. They're the same age pretty much. Why would one be too old, but one could win MVP? That doesn't make sense.
You got to stay with me here, everybody, because this is the youngest, most inexperienced quarterback position in the NFL. Yeah. This is going to be tough. Tyler
Well, kinda the youngest, most inexperienced, kinda. Because you can look at you can look like Tennessee, obviously, with Cam Ward. Like, I understand their backups maybe have some experience, but how much does that really impact the game? You know.
Shough was taken in the second round to be the quarterback of the Saints, I believe. Why else would they take him with the 40th overall pick? Yeah. They have not taken a quarterback this high in New Orleans since Archie Manning in 1971. Mm-hmm. And remember, Shough is going to be 26 years old in September. He spent 7 years in college football. He started at Oregon, backing up Justin Herbert. Then he went to Texas Tech. Then he went to Louisville. He had some red shirt issues. He broke a collarbone. He broke his leg. This guy's been through a lot. But he is a talented SOB, man. We spent the day with him here. He has a wide base. He rarely steps and throws. He's got a very good base and a quick release, and he can hum it, man. 6 foot.
He can let it go.
5'5", 230 pounds. I like his experience because I think he's a mentally tough guy. He's been hurt and had to come back. He's been benched and had to come back. He's had to learn new offenses. He's had to deal with all kinds of different players. And when I met him, I walked away thinking, man, I wish I had Tyler Shough on my team. I like the guy. I also like Spencer Rattler. He was 0-6 as a starter last year with beat-up receivers, beat-up tight ends, beat-up running backs. Everybody was beat up.
You know, sometimes I wonder what the narrative would be on Rattler. What would the narrative be on Rattler if he would have beat Washington? And the Saints, you know, you could argue coin toss, they win that game. It doesn't really matter. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like, if they win the game, should that really change? Should completing one pass, a 3-yard pass at the end of the game, should that really change how you view his performance? Probably not, right? Like a W or an L, when it comes down to that kind of a play, like, is that really fair? But it would wash away that whole, like, winless, the winless idea and all that. And it would be beating a really good team, beating Washington, who was about to go to the NFC title game. So, in a game where you had to come in the second, I think it's a very heroic story. Comes into the second half after Jake Haener vomits all over himself in the first half. They had spotted Washington a couple touchdowns. Rattler rallies the troops. Should have won the game. Could have won the game.
That guy competes. He's got a history of being a talented guy. In high school, at Oklahoma, at South Carolina, he does have some NFL experience. And I also like Jake Haener. Haener's been in here a lot. He's 0-1 as a starter. He threw for 226 yards last year. Rattler threw for 1,300. Haener missed the entire spring with an oblique injury, but Haener played for Kellen Moore's brother at Fresno. He's known Kellen Moore for 10 years. And I think this system is really going to help Haener. So it's going to be a competitive situation. But here's the problem. It's hard to get one quarterback ready to play in this league. He needs all the reps. How are you going to get 2 guys ready? 3? What the hell are we doing? And you're all young guys. So what are they going to do?
I think Haener will lose reps. And I think for the next 2-ish weeks, we'll probably see a pretty competitive timeshare between Rattler and Shough. And then around that preseason game, they'll name Rattler the starter, and then you'll just go from there. Pretty soon, they're going to have to decide who their guy is, and they got to feed him the reps. Yeah. Let's keep an eye on this situation throughout the preseason. All 3 quarterbacks have been all over the place. We already said Shough went to 3 colleges. Rattler went to 2. Hell, Jake Haener went to Washington. He transferred to Fresno. Jake Haener's been there. He played for Coach Carmichael's offense. Then he had Clint Kubiak. Now he's got Kellen Moore. These poor guys, they have had to learn a lot of systems, but they better learn this one fast. And I'll say this, Alvin Kamara, he is a badass. He had 950 yards rushing last year. That's a career high for him. But his ability to catch the ball makes him a dual threat badass. He was the number 1 target for the Saints last year. They targeted him 89 times, and he caught 63 passes. He's one of the few backs in NFL history to have over 1,100 yards from scrimmage 7 straight years. I mean, you're talking about LaDainian Tomlinson, Eddie George. You're talking about my guy, Ricky Watters. Kamara is something else. He had 21 touches a game last year. That's 5th in the NFL. I believe he's healthy. But who? I'm an owl again. Who is his backup? Kendre Miller? I hope so. He had 39 for 148 last year, but he's got to play better in a passing game, man. And he's got to pick up blitzes a whole lot better. He's got to do a lot better. I mean, we understand where Kendre is in this whole thing, but he's got to be better because Devin Neal was drafted for a reason.
He drafted Devin Neal. Keep an eye on him, fantasy fans. Devin Neal out of Kansas. He's a good player, man. 5'11", 215. I think he's a guy that could be a factor here. And remember this, Taysom Hill carried the ball for 275 yards. He's out. He hurt his knee, and he bailed the Saints out in short yardage, goal line, 4-minute drill at the end of the game. So there's a lot of transition in this running game. The key to the Saints offense is their offensive line.
No doubt.
Remember this. They have huge investments in their offensive line. Kelvin Banks, he's their left tackle. He was their 1st-round pick this year. He's a natural. He's got great hands, great feet. He's an athlete, man. He can redirect and recover. Trevor Penning, former 1st-round pick, is their left guard. Eric McCoy, solid center, man. He can make all.
One of the best centers in in the league.
All the calls, he was a second-round pick. Cesar Ruiz, former first-round pick, is their right guard, and I love this name right here. Tali Esse Fuaga. Say it with me. Tali Esse Fuaga. He's a former first-rounder. He played left tackle. Now he's over at right tackle. 4 first-round picks and a second-round pick. This has to be the strength of this Saints offense. They do have some quality depth, but I love this outfit. And their wide receiving core, their tight end core, this is a crowd that has a lot of work to do. Their young receivers, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, both injured last year. Olave had 2 concussions. He's had 4 concussions in 4 years. We got to keep an eye on that. Only 32 for 400 after.
You know, this is a total sidebar, but I think the NFL should institute a rule where if you have blank amount of concussions in a certain time period, I think they should make you play with the Guardian cap.
After 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, Olave's got to get healthy and stay healthy. He's their number 1 guy. Rashid Shaheed, the most dangerous return man in football. This guy can haul ass, man. Al Davis would have loved him. He's their home run threat, 17.5 yards.
I've been seeing a lot of Rashid Shaheed routes in training camp. Looking pretty good, not going to lie. His route tree's looking pretty good.
It's a catch, just 20 catches, but he's coming off a knee as well. The addition of Brandon Cooks. He was hurt in Dallas last year. He had a knee infection. Hell, everybody got hurt. But Cooks has stop and start quickness. He's a great route runner. If you're a fantasy...
Well, Cooks is a lot more, I think, of the, hey, you know, be the wily vet that can kind of find the soft spot in the zone, who's there, you know, sure hands. We know what we can get with him. Let the other guys kind of fly. Let the other guys kind of draw the attention and let Cooks just kind of feed where he can, when he can.
Football fan. Brandon Cooks, man. Circle star asterisk. He's going to be a sleeper.
Yeah.
Bub Means was a draft choice last year. Hell, he got hurt. Then they have an arsenal of young guys who got to play. Mason Tipton out of Yale. Dante Pettis. Kevin Austin Jr. They got a lot of candidates here, but they are fantasy sleepers for some of you guys that watch the waiver wire. You know what I mean? The tight end position, decimated.
This is the part where you got a big question mark. Like, if there's one position group I'm the most lukewarm on, it is the tight end room.
By injuries. Foster Moreau, former Raider, 6 touchdown catches he had. He got hurt in week 18. He won't be ready to start the season. Taysom Hill, we already talked about him. Hurt his knee, he's out. So it's going to be Juwan Johnson, 50 catches, 548 yards.
Need more than that out of Juwan. He just got that big contract. They got big plans for him. Will he be kind of a wide receiver tight end hybrid? We'll see, but he's got to have a big year.
But he's not the big blocking tight end. He's a receiving, converted wide receiver at Oregon to tight end. Keep an eye on Jack Stoll, the ex-Miami Dolphin, and this Holker guy.
Holker also retired, obviously. So
out of Colorado State. He had 3 catches for 21 yards, but he's going to have to play number 85. This is a work in progress. It's a talented young offensive line. It's a beat-up receiver and tight end crowd. Kamara's the star. And Kellen Moore has got to find his quarterback. Stay tuned. There's a lot of unsolved mysteries in New Orleans.
No doubt about that. A lot of question marks.
Okay, the New Orleans Saints defense, they have new leadership. Brandon Staley, the ex-head coach of the LA Chargers. He's coming in with Kellen Moore, the head coach who he had on his staff in the Charger land, and they have some history working together, which is going to be meaningful. They're going to return to a 3-4 base defense, meaning they're going to have a nose tackle covering the center. They brought in Devon Godchaux from the Patriots to cover the center and two-gap them. Keep that center, snatch them if the ball's over here, over there, go over there. I mean, you got to be able to play 2 gaps and control the center, and Godchaux can do that.
Godchaux was brought in to do something very simple. Plug the hole, and not allow rushing yards against you. He is a run stopper. He's being brought in to be that. He's a mercenary. He is a specific set of skills They brought him in to do that specific set of skills.
They have 2 defensive ends. I assume Brian Breesy, former first-round pick, and Jonathan Bullard, who's bounced around the league. He's a body snatcher. He was just with the Minnesota Vikings. So they got guys that can chew up blocks. And I expect Carl Granderson, Chase Young to be the outside linebackers. They're going to keep that ball inside. They're going to work hard on the line of scrimmage to set the edge. And then there are 2 inside linebackers.
I've talked about this before, but don't get too caught up in like the position names. I think along the defensive line, like a lot of that's gone away, like defensive end, defensive tackle. Now it's just edge. You know, like position. The NFL is kind of going through a position situation like the NBA did, where the positional names are kind of old. Like calling Brock Bowers a tight end, calling Juwan Johnson a tight end. You know, like it's like calling Deebo Samuel whatever. You know, designation when you give him calling Taysom Hill a tight end, like stuff like that. It's like you can kind of see where the positional stuff's falling apart.
Veteran Pete Werner and Demario Davis, one of my all-time favorite players. That represents a 3-4 defense. The guards will be uncovered quite a bit. It's very important that this defense, under Brandon Staley's leadership, they got to eliminate the explosive plays. The Saints gave up way too many big plays last year. And when you watch the Saints this year, you'll see some 3-4 defense, and you're going to see some split safety coverages. It's not cover 2 all the time. Sometimes it's 4 deep. Sometimes it's 2 deep. Sometimes it's quarter, half. Sometimes they roll this way. Sometimes they roll that way. But they try to keep an umbrella on the offense. They try to eliminate the explosive plays, keep everything in front of us, and let's limit the damage. That's what Staley's defense will do. This was a poor defense in 2024, 30th in the NFL in yards allowed, 380 yards
Horrible
per game,
run defense.
31st against the run. They gave up 141 yards a game, almost 5 yards a game.
So real quick, like this Fangio system, or whatever you want to call it, that Staley's a disciple of, that's why it's so popular now, is because it was implemented to stop what was going on, mostly with the Chiefs, where it was just explosive play, deep balls, whatever. So this defense says, you know what? We ain't letting that happen. We are not letting the big play happen. We're going to keep everything in front of us. If you want to dink and dunk us down the field, fine. This defense also famously was the defense that Bill Belichick used in the Super Bowl to stop the Rams in the, whatever it was, 10-3 game, or it was just a slot fest. But this defense completely eliminated what Sean McVay and that Rams team wanted to do.
Carry. And when I think about the Saints, I don't think about them being 31st against the run, especially with Demario Davis on the football team. They do have an aging core. How many times do we...
There's a great case study on it online, but basically the way it happened was at that time, Sean McVay and the running attack was a lot of misdirection. They were motioning a lot. They were trying to trick defenses, get them in the mismatches. And this defense said, we're not moving. We're not moving. We're going to do the same thing. I don't care what you show us up front. I don't care what you motion. I don't care what you're doing at all. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're crashing down on the defensive line, and that's just how it's going to be. And when all that misdirection, motion, play action, all that got thrown out the window, and their zone running was just getting blown up, the Rams couldn't do anything.
You're going to say that. Cam Jordan's 36. Demario's 36. Tyrann Mathieu 33. Well, you know what? They can still be players, and they can still be dynamic leaders. They can say, hey, pick it up out here. They can get after some of these young guys, show them the way. And that's just what they're counting on these guys to do. Make some plays and develop these young players. That's what excites me. I'll say this. The Saints missed way too many tackles last year. I mean, it's hard to watch. I make a highlight reel of missed tackles to show guys how not to tackle. The Saints were too many times on that reel. And that's what resulted in big runs, big yards after the catch, missed tackles. I get sick thinking about it. Anyways, we got to keep an eye on that. The defensive line, they've got a lot of new players with this new scheme. The nose tackles, I look for Shough to be the starter. They traded for him. They got him from the Patriots. Nathan Shepard has been there. They brought back Kalen Saunders, who's been around the league a little bit. They've got 3 guys that can play the nose. The base defensive end, Jonathan Bowler. They got Vernon Broughton, a guy they drafted out of Texas. Jonah Williams, Brian Breesy. They got some candidates there. Chris Rump, Jonah Williams. They got a lot of guys that can play the end position. But the marquee position are these edge guys. These are where the sacks are going to come from. I believe Carl Granderson has got to return to the level that he's capable of playing at. And I think Chase Young can play better as well in this scheme. Both of those guys had 5.5 sacks last year.
Yeah, that's not going to do it. That ain't going to get the job done.
And Brian Breesy, their former first-round pick, led the Saints last year with 7.5 sacks. So I think in their fourth quarter, their third down pass rush, you got Granderson, Breesy, Cam Jordan. They'll use them creatively. Chase Young. At least they have some better rushers, I believe, to get after the quarterback.
So this was that like Lamborghini package or NASCAR package that we kind of saw a little bit last year where they moved Cam kind of inside.
And keep an eye on this Isaiah Foskey. He's a former second-round pick. This is his third year. He has no sacks. They got to get something out of Foskey fast to give these Saints another rusher. But the front is changing with the addition of Brandon Staley. The linebacking core, quite simply, Demario Davis, as much as you want to say he's 36 years old, he'll still knock your ass off, man. He's a hell of a player. He led the...
Yeah, he's still been really good. I mean, age is not an issue until it is, as they say. You still keep pumping out high game grades. I don't care how old you are.
The team, 136 tackles. And when Staley calls a blitz, bet your ass Demario Davis will be the guy blitzing. Pete Werner's still very good. He can play in every down. He had 92 tackles. This is the top 2 New Orleans Saint tacklers. They also drafted Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. I think he's going to be mentored by Demario Davis.
Danny Stutzman very quickly is all of a sudden becoming like, hey man, is this guy the second best linebacker on the team? RAS score through the absolute roof. His combine numbers are insane, up there with first-round talent. Elite level run stopper at Oklahoma, over a 90 PFF grade in run defense. All-American stud, Danny Stutzman.
We like Stutzman a lot. We think he's got instincts, he got a nose for the ball, and he'll hit you. They got a couple young linebackers, DeMarco Jackson from App State. They got a couple other young guys that haven't done much. They got to start picking it up. The Saints need them. The secondary, we're going to see 2 new opening day starters at corner. Former second-round pick Kool-Aid McKinstry, he wears number 4. He came out of Alabama. I didn't think he reached his true potential at Alabama. That's why he went in the second round. But when I watch this kid play, he wears number 4. He's really physical. I think he got better. He started the last 7 games. Can he be a number 1 guy? Boy, they need one.
And this is the perfect system for him. This is what they did at Alabama. He should understand it. He should be good at it. He should pick it up quickly. I think this could be a really big year for Kool-Aid. I think Kool-Aid could solidify himself as that number 1 cornerback. It's a little bit different of like a number 1 cornerback. It's not the old school, like, follow one guy around, man-on-man, stopper, Revis Island kind of number 1 cornerback, but I think he is one of those guys that's going to take a big step forward this year with Brandon Staley as the DC.
In this NFC South, because there's some tough matchups. They also signed Isaac Yiadom. He'll be wearing number 27. Recently with the 49ers, he has ties to defensive coordinator Brandon Staley, but Yiadom's been on 7 teams now. So obviously, quarterbacks have helped him.
By the way, this is another sidebar. Heard this a long time ago, but if people mispronounce words or they say words differently or whatever, I read, like, I can't remember paraphrasing the actual thing, but it's like you shouldn't take that as a sign that they don't understand. It's actually the opposite, because it means that they have read it. It means that they've read the word, or they, whatever, they know how it's used, but they've seen it on their own. They never heard it said. They never heard how to pronounce it, so they had to create the pronunciation in their own mind. But it doesn't mean that they don't understand it, right? They just read it. Like that happens a lot in books. You read a book, there's always words you've never seen before in there, and you may just read them differently and not think anything of it, and then you say it, and then you get corrected or whatever. You realize the actual pronunciation. So, like if he says Isaac Yiadom, all that tells me is that he has watched tape on him, or he has seen his name. He's read it. That's just how he sees it and reads it. And then we're moving forward until he gets corrected.
Find new work. You know what I mean? They've got after Yiadom. Alontae Taylor is the nickel corner. I think Alontae Taylor could be the star in Brandon Staley's defense.
Yeah, I think Alontae will be asked to do the most different than he previously has done. And I think Staley will get him where he has to be. I think Staley will utilize him in the best possible way instead of asking him to do things that he maybe isn't that good at, like he had to do last year.
In Charger land, he used Derwin James, and I think he's going to use Alontae Taylor as a blitzer.
Yeah, I think so.
Taylor had 89 tackles.
Alontae was really, really, really good blitzing. He was really good kind of in havoc plays. There's a havoc metric. Alontae at one point was leading the NFL. All of a sudden, he's being asked to cover guys on the outside in man, and it's like, well, that's not what he does. That's not what he's good at, right? So I think he'll be utilized the right way. I think Staley will have him in a much better situation.
And 4 sacks last year. I think you could look for him to have a lot of blitzes on his plate this year. The 2 safeties are veterans, Tyrann Mathieu and Justin Reed. Think about this. Combined, these 2 guys have 273 starts. They have 46 picks, over 1,400 tackles, and together they played at Houston. So they have some experience roaming a secondary together. But what I like the most is not only their leadership and history, is I like these 2 young safeties for the New Orleans Saints. They just drafted Jonas Sanker. Where's he from, Jake?
Virginia.
And he's a hell of a player. And they drafted Jordan Howden, number 31, the year before. They have 2 young safeties to watch these 2 veteran guys, some emerging corners with Taylor and McKinstry. I like this mix. And they drafted Quincy Riley in the 4th round out of Louisville.
When you see something like this and you see it all broken down, I don't see this and I don't immediately think, damn, the Saints are shallow. Like, I don't see this and think, damn, man, the Saints don't have a lot of talent here. The roster's kind of shallow. There's not a lot there. When I see this, I'm like, man, there's a lot going on here. You know, like Kool-Aid, Isaac Yiadom, Alontae Taylor. Oh, well, then you have Quincy Riley also. It's like, oh, all right. You know, Julian Blackman, Justin Reed. Oh, but you also have Jonas Sanker and Jordan Howden. All right. Oh, you got Carl Granderson and Chase Young. But then you also have, you know, whoever else, Brian Brzee and Vernon Broughton and Godshaw. You know, Demario Davis, Pete Werner. Oh, you also have Danny Stutzman. It's like, I mean, this roster's kind of getting fleshed out here.
So there's some young, up-and-coming Saints on the back end that I really like. Don't forget J.T. Gray, who's in his 7th year. But this is an interesting transition. 4-3 to 3-4. Got to tackle better. Got to
tackle better. You got to get after the quarterback.
Get after the passer. And let's hope Granderson, Chase Young, Cam Jordan, Brzee, and the additions, okay, of Godshaw and Bullard can give the Saints some girth in the running game.
There you go. Rich Gannon time.
Okay, let's go back to Rich Gannon and see what he says about the Saints quarterback room. Shough is a rookie from Louisville. People's jaws dropped when they drafted him in the 2nd round. They got Rattler, who played 5 or 6 games last year from South Carolina, and they've got Jake Haener, a young man.
Don't get this twisted. Rich Gannon was the freaking man.
And who started 1 game from Fresno. What are the Saints going to do to try to get one of these 3 young guys ready to go?
John, could you imagine being Kellen Moore? Here you get an opportunity to be a head coach in the National Football League, and you walk into a quarterback room. Think about this for just a second. You walk into a quarterback room with 3 guys, one who's never played in the NFL, but the other 2 never won a game in the NFL.
Like I said earlier, like how much different is that than if Rattler would have beat the Commanders? Does it really change that much? I don't think so. You know, so what I would say is imagine being Kellen Moore. You take this job and all of a sudden Derek Carr retires. Tyrann Mathieu retires. Like, just imagine all the stuff that he had to go through.
Spencer Rattler played in 6 games last year. They're 0-6. And he's not a big guy either. He's a 6-foot quarterback. Jake Haener's a 6-foot quarterback. He got a start last year. That didn't go well. And so, Derek Carr retires. With Derek Carr, they had a guy that could handle a ton of volume, a ton of information. When the pocket was clean, he could spin it with the best of them. And you lose that experience. And now when you look at that division, we talked about Baker Mayfield. We talked about Bryce Young in year 3. The Saints went out and drafted a quarterback last year in the first round. You got to look at the Saints situation, and you got to say this is maybe one of the worst situations in the NFL. I can't imagine that they're going to go into the season with just those 3. There's got to be
I understand Kirk Cousins is sort of kind of pseudo there in Atlanta. How much of a difference really is there with Spencer Rattler playing 6 games, doing what he did, and Michael Penix playing 3 games, winning 1, and averaging 250 yards and a touchdown to pick a game? Is it really that different? Is that 1 win from Penix that different than, and who was the win against the Giants? Is it that different than what Rattler did as far as like a situation? I just don't think so. That's kind of what I'm talking about, where I understand the he's 0-6, whatever, but I don't think the 1 versus the 0 is that big of a deal. And if it's not that big of a deal, then 0-6 probably isn't that big of a deal as far as like walking into the situation or whatever. It's the exact same thing as Penix, where it's like, all right, you got an older guy, you got an inexperienced guy, some good, some bad. You don't know what you got. Let's see what you got, and then go from there. But I'm not as concerned about Rattler being 0-6 versus 1-5.
Kirk Cousins conversation. Maybe we do something with the Falcons. Maybe we bring in a veteran quarterback. I just don't know how you begin the season that way. And you and I looked at a lot of tape of Tyler Shough, big kid out of Louisville. But there's a guy that there's a reason why he wasn't a first-round draft pick. So I just think it may be the worst situation in the NFL right now. When you talk about a lack of experience, just the uncertainty of it all, and then trying to go up against that Bucs defense. Carolina's going to be better on defense. I think the Falcons got a chance to be better on defense. And you look at their schedule, the first 6-7 weeks of the season, not an ideal situation for Kellen Moore.
Well, what do you do when the collective bargaining agreement says you only can have a 2-hour practice? You can have 15 plays of 7-on-7. You can have 15 reps of team run. You can have 15 reps of bootlegs and perimeter offense. Who gets the reps? Because you can't get 3 guys ready to play. You might as well go all in on one of these guys. What's your take on that? You took all the reps when you're the starting quarterback, and Rodney Peete would come in and get some crumbs, but you can't give 3 young quarterbacks enough time to get ready, I don't think.
Well, it's the same. I mean, what are the Browns going to do? They've got 5 quarterbacks.
Oh, we're staying on the NFC South.
I understand, but it's a similar situation. It's a similar situation. I don't know how you go into training camp not emphasizing one player. In other words, you have to know coming out of the spring, this all things being said, this is the guy that's probably going to be the starter.
I think because of the way that the NFL and the CBA and all that has orchestrated the schedule, this is the first week, or the first week of padded practice is really the only time you can see all these guys with the veterans, with the pads on, in a real situation. It's very difficult, I would think, to make a judgment on, let's just say, Tyler Shough versus Spencer Rattler, when you're only basing that off of shirts and shorts, 7-on-7, throw into third string, fourth string, throw into fellow rookies. None of the vets are there. Like, maybe you even want to talk to the vets. Maybe you want to get Alvin Kamara's opinion of, like, what are you seeing out there? Talk to Brandon Cooks, talk to some of these guys. Like, what's it look like? What's it sound like? What are the players saying? What is, like? I think this week, or the first week of padded practice, I think is a pretty good week to look at it, rotate those guys, see what you got, and then start to kind of divvy up the reps a little bit more towards one player versus the other. But I think it's just, I would be very uneasy if the decision was made before the first week of padded practice.
Gives us the best chance of winning, and we have to give him the majority of the reps. John, there's just not enough reps to go around. You can't split them up evenly. You know that. And we got to find out. And I think, every rep is important in training camp because there's less of them. Back in the day when, we were together in Napa, we had two-a-days. I mean, they were legit two-a-days. I can't even go to training camp practices anymore. It drives me crazy. I walk out in the practice field in the afternoon, and they're wearing shorts, T-shirts, and a baseball cap. And it's a walkthrough. And I'm like, what are we getting out of this? I know teams are trying to go to more scrimmages with other teams. That makes some sense. Control, be able to control, the script, to be able to control the periods and those type of things. But I just think when you're looking at the situation in New Orleans, each of them need competitive reps. They need,
Right. But, okay, you're kind of saying two things, and both of those things kind of lead to what I'm saying. They need competitive reps. The only way you can truly judge these guys in order to make a decision of who's your starter is with those competitive reps. But they can't get the competitive reps until the padded practice. And because the rep number is so low, you have to kind of wait. You can't make, there's some practices where we're talking about like 5, 6, 7 reps, so you almost have to slow roll it and say, all right, we're going to go through a full week. We're going to put them in different situations. We're going to rotate these guys evenly, where at the end of the week, we'll be able to see, all right, we put them through all these different situations, these scrimmages, these reps. We let them play with the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s. What's the whole picture look like now? That's the only way. And not to mention, too, this is a slow process. And I think if you're thinking we got to have this figured out by the first preseason game, yeah, it seems way faster than it should. But if you're thinking it's a little more delayed than that, and you can kind of have more of a process with it, I don't think there's that rush to name a starter before the first week of practice or the first week of training camp, like they're saying. Like, you got to go into training camp with a starter. As a Saints fan, I ask you this: don't you think it would be kind of crazy if they would have named a starter before the week of practice that we just had? I know. I'm glad they haven't. I'm glad that they're still in the quarterback competition where we are right now. Now, in a week, in 2 weeks, I might be thinking, all right, now it's probably time to go ahead and move some of these reps around. But I would not. I wouldn't feel good about the starter being named, July 28th or whatever it was, July 27th.
Oh, blitz period reps. They need 2-minute reps. They need red zone reps. And, they need live reps. And it's just there's not enough snaps in the preseason. But that's going to be a very interesting situation for Kellen Moore and that staff down there in New Orleans. A lot of inexperience on that.
Now, I also think with the preseason, you're going to see Rattler play a half, Shough play a half. And I think you're going to see the Saints attack those games like real games. It's not going to be how the Lions played in the Hall of Fame game, which was an absolute disgrace. I think they're going to go full bore. And you're going to get a lot of those live reps, learning reps, whatever, in preseason. I'm not saying they're going to let the quarterback battle go in the preseason, but the CBA kind of can only do so much when preseason hits, right? Because then it's a game. And if you really put the pedal to the metal, you can get a lot of juice out of those games. I think that's what the Saints are going to do.
Staff, a lot of inexperience in the quarterback room. I can't imagine they'll begin the season that way.
I don't think they'll begin the season in the quarterback battle. I think that'll all be solved around that first preseason game.
Challenge. And I think who deals with adversity? You got to let a young quarterback play through some things. He goes out there, he has a bad practice on a Wednesday. You don't just go with the other guy on Thursday. Yeah. You got to let him play through some things. And the team is looking at that position. Let's not kid ourselves. I was a head coach of the Buccaneers with Brad Johnson. We won a Super Bowl. A couple of years ago, we're playing a rookie, Bruce Gradkowski from Toledo.
Oh, I was about to trivia. Damn. I was about to trivia where Bruce Gradkowski went. John got me.
And the team knows that Bruce is not at the level yet of a Brad Johnson. So they're all studying and witnessing the development or lack of development, and it can really hurt the morale of a football team, right, Rich?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think you're not going to fool the players in the
Yeah.
huddle. They know who can do it. They know who.
But talk about risky business. Like, let's say you name a starter going into training camp, and that's like, let's say you say Tyler Shough's the starter, and he starts to struggle. Well, now you're going to have those players looking around like, hey, coach, you think you got this one right? Risky business. So that's another reason why you kind of want to let it go into that first week.
Has the stripes. They know who has the experience. And, you talked a little bit earlier about Baker Mayfield, John. I think when he walks into the huddle, these players know they got a chance each and every week. I mean, that's a very comforting feeling to have as a football team. I think when you put your head down on your pillow on Saturday night as a head coach in the NFL, you sleep a lot better knowing that you got a chance with the quarterback on Sunday. Yeah. And when you're Kellen Moore and you're not quite sure, that's not a good situation to be in. My sense is that they've already seen what they had with the other two players last year. And you mentioned Rattler playing 6 games, Jake Haener playing a game last year. I think this is all about Tyler Shough and finding out what this kid can do in the preseason. How ready is he? Can we start him week 1? And can we be patient with him? That's the other thing, John, as you know. These general managers have a way of creeping down the hallway and talking to the coach. The owner sticks his nose in there. The owner wants to see this guy. The owner wants to make a quarterback change. Are we going to be patient? We drafted this quarterback for a reason. There's going to be growing pains. Are we going to be mature enough as an organization? We're going to be patient enough to realize that we've got to stick this thing out. Too many teams pulled the trigger way too soon.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good stuff from Gruden, good stuff from Rich. Yeah, I mean, we know what we're up against, and all eyes are on the quarterback battle. But, ladies and gentlemen, long one, over an hour long. If you made it to the end, let me know in the comments below. You're an absolute hero. Good stuff from Gruden, man. He's a football dude, and I always respect the football dudes out there. Imagine not being a football dude. Jesus Christ. All right. Get on down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.